This video is, I think, about the poetics of space, or simply how we move through a city, how the city's design will influence your perceptions of the space and ultimately affect your state of mind. We demolished so much of the town to build this significant network of semi-subterranean passageways that used to completely avoid traffic. However, in the 90s, sentiment came around that we had prioritized the car too much and we needed to take back the roads. And we would do this by filling in the subways and return to a precarious game of chicken with local traffic. Now people contend with the fumes, the noise, the beautiful asphalt, and the boring theatre of waiting for their turn to cross the road. So if those tunnels had been kept clean, safe and welcoming, we would have more what you could call transformative spaces today in a central area of the city. Here is one example of a transformative space, perhaps that you've heard of it, as it's a popular online topic. I'm referring to liminal spaces. What is a liminal space? Well, the common interpretation is a threshold. And once you're in between, it makes you feel like you're out of time and place. Maybe you've had that feeling in a hotel lobby, or when you turn up to an empty classroom on the wrong day. Maybe you've even felt it in a video game, or even on the stairs at home where I assume you've probably always blamed it on a ghost. The complexities of city design can unintentionally shift your perspective on how you interact with its space. In this moment, our ego can be dissolved and we can briefly feel the world through a different lens. Very similar to how they built medieval cathedrals. The spatial dislocation and the high vaulted ceilings can imply a suspension between two worlds. Magnified by the hymns and the echoes, you have stepped outside the roles that normally define you. I remember this feeling very well, of all places, in this grimy passageway into a 1970s brutalist shopping mall called Drake Circus. A white tiled threshold that led from natural light to a world of damp concrete walls and fluorescent shadows. All the rhythmic sounds of muffled footsteps and the narrowing of human movement unintentionally gave the same mental shift you can get in a swimming pool or at the peak of a hill, even if it's only temporary. Of course, the feeling would change in the underpass and it takes on a new negative perception depending on the time of night or day. We often interpret liminal spaces today through the visual and emotional language of abandonment or stillness. Victor Turner originally described liminality in cultural terms as a ritual state of in-between, where identity becomes fluid and transformation is possible. While Turner focused on social and psychological transitions, the essence of liminal space in your mind or in the physical world are one and the same. It's stepping outside of a structure into a space of ambiguity and reflection. And if you've been given a predetermined path of limited choice and too much visual distractions, then the city will lead to feelings of boredom, disconnection, and decreased motivation. Plymouth has a simplistic grid-like pattern compared to its organically grown older version. But once you climb the hill, the main city, and you arrive at a place called the Hoe. And just make it quickly clear for our non-local viewing here, the Hoe is not a prostitute, but a large area overlooking the ocean. And where the ocean here, by the way, is what we call the Sound. So you'd say you're climbing up the Hoe to go and see the Sound. It's kind of odd, but that's how people say it. Well, anyway, this place offers a vast amount of space and freedom. And the exposure to the horizon and the sea is truly breathtaking, whatever the weather. So when I get off the train, I always head in this direction. There is just endless paths and routes you can take. It's like a maze. They all crisscross each other from the very top of a high hill all the way down to the rocky shore. And this brings me to a person called Guy Debord. And he wrote a book in 1967 called The Society of the Spectacle, where he describes a world where we have become actors in absurdity. And he would argue that the city space no longer invites participation. It demands a type of submission. Billboards, shop fronts, branded architecture create a visual environment that you can't opt out of. Not communication, but it's imposed on us without our consent. And over time, the absurdity of all this becomes so normalized, you don't even notice that your movement is being commodified. So Guy would encourage the idea of drifting through the city with your heart as a compass, moving through the city and following the contours that you choose. A little bit like parkour, a kind of way of protesting, insubordination, and having a different type of relationship with the city space. If you look at the thumbnail of this video, it is inspired by his artwork that he would call The Drift. So Banksy tells this story very well, and street art in general, because with this kind of street art, it can include and reinvent any corner of the city. His art, of course, is quickly sent on a path to become the very spectacle that Debord warns of. I feel like rooftops are also part of the transformative landscape, maybe because most of the time you're not supposed to be up there, and they have their own set of rules for movement. The roof of the New Palace Theatre is a potent transformative space. Being a threshold of ground and sky, past and its uncertain future, the centre of a street that was designed to transition two towns. It's full of embedded nostalgia and has a facade that celebrates Plymouth's maritime heritage. When it's gone, or replaced with some kind of potential steel and glass cube, this very corner will lose all meaning. And I guess really that's what it comes down to. It's whether we sleepwalk and fill our shopping bags full of Labubus, or decide to drift in our own chosen direction. Okay, saving the best to last. One last Mon design concept that will certainly get a reaction from you, perhaps a mix of laughter and anger at the same time. It's, of course, blobism. Blobism is a contemporary architectural style characterized by amorphous organic forms, often prioritizing visual novelty and experimentation over spatial clarity. I've mentioned the Selfridges store in Birmingham. Check this out. This is the Friendly Alien in Graz, Austria. So the question is, how would you feel if Bretonside would become a giant blob? Like an alien taking up residence here. Well, for me, it is just temporary novelty, and it has no lasting durability. But there is probably a place for elegant curves and surreal design in Plymouth, which I think we have none. Everything about Plymouth is very formal and modern, in the sense where it's all very cubic. I was introduced to this architecture studio in Toronto, and I keep going back to this one image. So I'm going to use it, and I'm going to use it to help me redesign this area of Plymouth, a place which we call Bretonside. And I want to design this area that encourage all the transformative spaces that I've mentioned above, and a much less emphasis on the spectacle or consumerism. And I know I've headed away from historical storytelling recently, but I'm working on a large project that refocuses the Barbican, the medieval Barbican project, the Mayflower Steps, the castle, and the Bretonside raids of medieval Plymouth. So just bear with me. I've got one more pretentious video on the works. It's called the Arcades Project. But until then, goodbye.